Welcome to the Port's Garrison. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Greetings and welcome to the Port's Garrison. As usual, I'm your host, PD Port. Now, what's bothering me today? What have I decided to go make a video to share with you? Now, during the course of last week, and in my last video, I did refer to the occurrence in Parliament, according to Nigel Clarke, the Honourable, in Parliament where racial terms are used, or the term Massa Mark was used by Nigel, and also MP Angela Bromberg used the term shut up and let me talk. And that created a whole cascade in the Parliament. Now, after that happened, and that stemmed from opposition leader Mark Golden using the term damn fools to describe labourites. And after that, after sitting in the Parliament, which the opposition walked out and the government members banged the tables or the desk in agreement with the term. So after they walk out and subsequent to that sitting of Parliament, Mark Golden apologized for the use of the term. So everybody was expecting that in the next sitting of Parliament, the Finance Minister Nigel Clarke would at least apologize as well for the use of the term Massa Mark. And so I sat down waiting to hear the apology. But rather than an apology, what we got was an explanation. Now, take a listen to this prepared sermon, almost 20 minutes of it, by Nigel Clarke.
Yes.
I rise under Section 18 of the Standing Orders to make a personal explanation, and
Which section is that?
Section 18,
Just allow
or
me.
Standing Order 18, and I
Hold on a
ask
minute.
your
Hold on.
approval and the approval of the House members to proceed.
Just a moment, member. Very well, member. You have my approval. Members of the House, those in favor, I have given the approval to the member to make a personal explanation on the Standing Order 18. He has my approval as a speaker. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Member?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to members of the House. In my closing budget presentation last week, Madam Speaker, I referred to an earlier publicly recorded comment made by the Leader of the Opposition, Mark Golding, in which he described, or is reported to have described, members of the Jamaica Labour Party, and if I may say the words, as a part of my explanation, as damn fools. Taken aback by yet another disparaging and insulting comment, I responded in my presentation that this characterization of members of the Jamaica Labour Party as damn fools did not sound like Marky G, it sounded like Massa Mark. Madam Speaker, Mr. Golding has reportedly apologized for these remarks, which I appreciate. Objections have been raised to my use of the word massa, Madam Speaker, which have largely relied upon a misleading imputation of motive and intent. My remark was meant to draw attention in a light-hearted way to a trend by the opposition leader to explicitly denigrate others with his choice of words without him realizing the need to account for those words. It is that unaccountable display of power that I describe as massa. Now, Madam Speaker, in my explanation, I have to just speak the facts as they have unfolded over the last few days. The PNP and its affiliates have been quick to characterize my reference as racist. The Gleaner has also accused me of using the quote-unquote race card. Others have been similarly critical. These characterizations of my comments are unfortunate and they are untrue. Madam Speaker, I would never countenance. And indeed, I reject race-based politics. This is simply not who I am. Seeking to disqualify someone for political office on the basis of factors such as race or gender or religion is and will always be abhorrent to me. However, Madam Speaker, criticizing someone for how he describes his fellow Jamaicans in a derogatory manner is not racist. In any event, the PNP, the Gleaner, and many others have used or accepted the use of the term Massa to describe others in a non-racial way, referring instead to a particular leadership attitude and style based on their power. However, Madam Speaker, the peace that I have in my position does not simply rest on the bed of moral equivalence. It relies on the rock of Jamaican evidence that confirms that the term Massa is, one, a part of the lexicon of modern Jamaica, two, habitually employed in non-racial ways, and three, always refers to attitudes regarding power relations. Today, Madam Speaker, in today's Jamaica, Massa describes a perceived attitude of those with power in relation to others, not a color. It describes a perceived disposition, not a race. And it is an acceptable term of the Jamaican language that frequently appears non-racially in the written and the spoken word. Now, does the term have a root in slavery? Absolutely. But as in all cultures, previously subjugated groups often reclaim and reappropriate words that originated during oppressive times for their own use. In fact, Madam Speaker, according to the Jamaica Patois Dictionary, the primary definition of Big Massa is God Almighty, which is an unquestionable reference to God's power, not to any race or color. Similarly, the lyrics of a popular modern Jamaican gospel song includes the line, Massa God a God. Now, are Jamaican Christians being racist by their use of the word Massa in this song? When former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Jamaica in 2018 to meet with 7 CARICOM heads of government right here in Jamaica, the late Honourable Barbara Gludon wrote an article in the Jamaica Observer which she titled, Big Massa Passing Through. Was the esteemed Barbara Gludon being racist? Was she referring to Mike Pompeo as a slave master? No. Miss Gludon was referring to her perceptions of the power relations among the parties. Now, Madam Speaker, is the term Massa only used to describe power relations involving a white person? Well, let's look at the evidence. No one accused a previous union of being racist in 2009 when their General Secretary likened Prime Minister Bruce Golding to a quote-unquote Bakra Massa during the course of wage negotiations. The story appeared in the Gleaner, and there were certainly no editorials about the use of a racial slur. Madam Speaker, former PNP MP Ronnie Thwaites, who once sat in this House, has used the terms Bakra and the terms Bakra Massa on a number of occasions in his columns in the Gleaner. In a 2018 column that was titled and that ended with the words, Yes, Bakra, exclamation sign, Reverend Thwaites outlined his reasons for voting against the state of emergency at the time and implied that, in his view, the Holness administration was exhibiting Bakra tendencies. He was referring, Madam Speaker, not to the race of members of the government in power, but to his perception of an attitude and approach of members of the government. Now, Madam Speaker, are these terms, or is this term only used in reference to politicians? No, but it is always referring to an attitude and style of leadership related to power. In 2019, a Gleaner headline read, "Cumberland principal staff at loggerheads over Bakramasa leadership." That was the headline in the Gleaner. The entire criticism in the article was based on an accusation of disrespect through the principal's perceived choice of language and leadership attitude. The article had nothing whatsoever to do with race. Madam Speaker, twice in the past, Gleaner columnist or guest columnist Kevin O'Brien Chang has described, in his view, a previous West Indies cricket board as having a quote-unquote Bakramasa leadership attitude. Nothing there about race or colour. Madam Speaker, despite the hullabaloo created by the PNP, which in my view,
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member has invoked Section 18 of the Standing Orders. And that section is quite explicit that no controversial matter may be brought. And what is at the heart of the minister's statement is indeed a controversy. And this controversy started last week by the minister. And, Madam Speaker, it is an abuse of the Standing Orders if we were to allow this, the minister to continue in this vein. This is indeed a controversial matter.
Madam Speaker, just to respond in the interpretation of that very section 18, the issue as it relates to controversial matter relates to whether that matter of controversy was in the House. There was no matter of controversy in the House per se, and what the member is doing is responding appropriately to what Section 18 does ask, that on a matter of word, he can make a statement, and that's what he's doing.
Member, I pause because this matter has been in the public domain to read this section which says, with the leave of the Speaker and the indulgence of the House, which we received because I granted leave, we agreed, a member may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the House. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may any debate arise upon the explanation. And before I go further, I'm asking all members of this House, on either side of the aisle, whenever the Speaker is speaking, to observe silence. That is in keeping with the standing orders. So, I wrote from what the minister started by saying, and I'm paraphrasing because I was listening carefully to what came from his mouth, and he says, race-based politics is not something he will ever engage in. And what I understand him to be doing is explaining that his comment was not made to be race connected. And I want to state very clearly, as this Speaker, that race-based politics will never be accepted in this House in any form or fashion. I want for all of us and Jamaicans to know that this Parliament has long passed the stage of race-based politics. Those dark days are over. We are a country where our motto is, out of many, one people. And therefore, I am imploring every member of this Parliament on either side of the aisle to refrain from bringing this Parliament and indeed our country into the depths from where we have long emerged. So, the explanation, Minister, I take it it's not a speech. You have explained yourself. And are you at the close? Well, very well. But, Minister, I know you were just finishing, but it is a right of the member to raise a point if he wanted it elucidated, and therefore he so did, and that is what I know. Go ahead.
Madam Speaker, before the member rose to his feet, I was making the point that the term Massa, as used in Jamaica in modern times, the evidence suggests that it is, one, a part of the modern lexicon of Jamaica, two, habitually employed in non-racial ways, and three, always refers to attitudes regarding power relations. And I was given a number of examples of this, including examples of its usage by former members of this House who sat on the other side. And, Madam Speaker, I was at the point of my presentation where I have not spoken on this matter over the past week, and I have to address what has occurred from my point of view. And I'm saying, despite... Yes. Yes. So Madam Speaker, despite the hullabaloo created by the PNP, which in my view, in 2017...
Member, I would ask you to refrain from using that word, hullabaloo. I don't think it's appropriate.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Madam Speaker, what I was about to say is that in 2017, a former member of this House who sat on that side,
Member, we have to follow the standing orders. We are not going to call people by name. Members, hold a minute. We have students in the House. I have implored you that we're going to follow the standing order. So we're not going to call names or anything also. We are going to always refer just to the honourable members and their various persons. Please.
Madam Speaker, in 2017, two former members of this House who sat on the other side appeared in an episode of an online program, Madam Speaker, Probe, and the program was titled Mombasa Grass for Massa Horse. And the Massa reference here was the then Minister of Agriculture, who's a member on this side. The byline, Madam Speaker, to this episode was, in quotes, probing issues of power. For the members, Madam Speaker, who appeared in that program, Massa was not about race. It was about power. And the link to this Massa titled program was retweeted from the official account of the opposition with the encouragement, watch this video. Watch this video. Massa then, Madam Speaker, was not about race. It was about power, and the opposition's official Twitter account recommended that episode and that video. So, Madam Speaker, I see an inconsistency, therefore, to now claim racism when the exact same term that they used applied to a member on this side is now racist when the same term is used on the other side. Madam Speaker, the points that I am making about the inappropriateness of referring to Jamaicans with derogatory labels such as the one I mentioned earlier, damn fool in addition to little boy and little girl, is a point that the opposition of a different vintage would have themselves made emphatically. And therefore I consider it, Madam Speaker, an irony of ironies. Madam Speaker, there are several Jamaican proverbs that make use of the word massa. Here are a few. Sleep have no massa, which means eventually sleep will overpower you. Massa has, massa grass, which is a proverb about power, control, and entitlement. Another one is patient dog, nyam in massa bone. With patience, you can rise above those who may have authority over you. Are we racist, Madam Speaker, or racially motivated when we invoke these Jamaican proverbs? No. In these proverbs, massa is used non-racially in relation to power and authority. Madam Speaker, despite political competition, Mark Golding and I have always, the opposition leader, the opposition leader and I have always enjoyed a very productive relationship in this and the other house, and a warm and friendly one outside, inclusive of our wives. Some of the interpretations I have seen and listened to are inconsistent with that reality. The reasons are, Madam Speaker, speaking my truth, is that my remarks have been misconstrued, my motives have been misrepresented, and my intentions have been distorted. I regret that some persons may have viewed my remarks as racially motivated. To again be clear, that was never my intention. To apologize, however, Madam Speaker, would be to legitimize what simply is not true. The truth is that massa, in its modern usage, is applied non-racially. Massa Mark, as I used it, was not about race. Massa Mark, as I used it, was not about color. Massa is always about an attitude and style regarding power, and that is how I use the term to describe what I saw as disrespectful attitude and language, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I thank you and members of the House for affording me this opportunity.
So Minister Clarke went into a lot of explanation. There's a saying that says you speak when you're on counter with your conscience. You don't sit with your conscience, you speak a lot. And liars, for example, speak a lot in explaining things. He went to the Patois dictionary. He said it was modern Jamaican language. Who in modern Jamaican is using the term massa? Well, clearly, some people got it the way the public got it, or most of the public got it. People on the government side. Now, if you listen carefully, what is supposed to be sort of vassal, but it wasn't, to Bobby Montague and Desmond McKenzie, one of them yelled, white man, and the other one yelled, Baka Massa. Take a listen to them.
Call them beep fools. Madam Speaker, that never sound like Marky G to me.
Now clearly, they took it the way the general public took it. The way that the way that Nigel is saying that is not so. He went on to say a whole bunch of stuff. Now he says that he and Mark are good friends outside of the Parliament, and their wives is also good friends. Now, if they are good friends and you have a good relationship, do the honourable thing, brother. You're supposed to be honourable. Supposed to be. Do the honourable thing and apologize. Because guess what? If I step on a man's corn, I didn't intend to step on him toe. I didn't intend to do it. But he balls out. At least I can do, boss. Me never mean to step on your toe. But since you heard, sorry. Because clearly, Mark Golding was offended because he walked out of the Parliament. He led the walkout. Now, it is the honourable thing to do to say, yes, I made a mistake. So you're going to talk about people using terms like you're playing on the way that African Americans use the N-word and embrace it. So as to take away the harsh effect of it. Nobody in Jamaica does that to the word massa. Absolutely. And it is clear that if in context, if you use it to a white man, it's clear as day what you're saying. You're not fooling anybody. And I don't know if this is your natural being or you've been forced to act like that. But clearly, Angela Bromberg did not believe a word you said because she spoke after you and she did refer to it as a racial slur. Here is Angela Bromberg.
Madam Speaker, I rise to seek permission under Standing Order number 18 for personal explanation. Could I get a podium, please?
I have read it. I'm approving you to use the provision of Standing Order 18. And members, those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you also to the members of the House. Madam Speaker, I am the first to admit that the words used by me last Tuesday to rebuff comments of sit down and no say nothing from the government benches were unparliamentary. Madam Speaker, I found the comments unbecoming, including those that also said, but I no lie, him is a descendant of slave masters. I found the comments unbecoming of those referenced by the Minister of Finance as one, unbecoming, and two, I felt them to have been a racial slur used in addressing the leader of the opposition. That was the original point on which I rose. However, the comments that I heard from the benches of the government also increased my anger. It also increased my frustration with the level of incivility and disrespect that I have found far too often coming from that side. It is true that there are times when they also come from this side of the benches as well. We have been asking members in the society, school children and everyone, to look at how they speak to each other. We have been asking them, Madam Speaker, to refrain from abuse. And we have been at pains to indicate that verbal abuse is not only physical, but it is often also verbal. I want you to think with me, Madam Speaker, of two sides who meet almost on a weekly basis, several times sometimes. One side of 14 and another side of 49. I want you to imagine with me, Madam Speaker, what that side of 14 goes through day after day when the other side, at every opportunity they get, seek to quiet them by their numbers and by their abuse. It was in that context, Madam Speaker, when I rose to make a point that I felt very strongly about, and I saw other members belittling the point I was trying to make, and to add insult to injury, also telling me to sit down and not say nothing, that I responded. I have heard and seen, Madam Speaker, in social media and elsewhere, persons attributed that discourse to me either trying to insult the leader of government business or the Speaker of the House. I put it squarely on the record, Madam Speaker, that there was no intent to disrespect neither the leader of government business nor the Speaker of the House. In no way. Madam Speaker, I rose and I retorted based on what was happening at the moment. And I am the first to say that if I was not so provoked and could have contained my temper at the time, I could very easily have said, will you please allow me to make my point undisturbed? And so today, Madam Speaker, I have absolutely no problem, as I started to say last week, that I am willing to withdraw the comments that I made. I do so under no duress, but I do so conscious, Madam Speaker, that the Parliament requires a reset. Madam Speaker, the Parliament requires a reset because we have found it far too easy to say because an individual is seated and not mic'd, their disrespectful comments should be ignored. I want to make the call, Madam Speaker, for us to review that, because it should not be acceptable either, whether it is said seated or it is said while you are on the mic. I believe that fundamentally, how we address each other should be one of respect, because every single individual who comes to this House has been sent here by a number of persons who have voted for them and who have asked them to represent them in the House. Madam Speaker, I go further, and I also say that references to the hue of anyone's skin or things that might be so construed should also be construed or misconstrued, should also not be part of what we indulge in here in this House. And I say that, Madam Speaker, because I have had the opportunity since last week to speak, in fact, to a number of teachers who have said to me that they have found in their classrooms that it has become less tolerant. And I wasn't sure I understood what they meant. And so I asked, what are you saying? And what they have said to me, Madam Speaker, is that coming out of COVID and coming back into the classroom, they have found greater slurs being heard by their students against the Chinese and against persons of a lighter hue. With that happening in our schools, Madam Speaker, I feel even more strongly than I did the last time around that an individual like myself, and I also say it, Madam Speaker, because I am also aware that the way I wear my hair sometimes is a problem. I know that because members in this House have told me that they could actually introduce me to a hairdresser. So I know that it is an issue in our country. Madam Speaker, the leader of opposition, Mr. Mark Golding, is a Jamaican. Born in Jamaica, schooled in Jamaica, married to a Jamaican, with Jamaican children. His father and himself, they have served the Jamaican people with respect. They have given their life of service, it should be acknowledged and never be torn down.
Member, I am allowing you, like I did the member from the government side, to use Standing Orders 18 as self-explanatory. And you have indicated you have no difficulty and you're not under duress in withdrawing the statement, and I appreciate that, and I think it is a correct thing to do. But this section that we are using, the session having passed, is a session that does not allow us to debate the issue at hand. So that I appreciate what you're saying, but I am guiding you that this is not a subject for debate. I am not prepared for the Parliament to go into that debate under this section.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the guidance. The comments I have made is really simply to put in context how I felt, how I received the racial slurs that I heard, and what provoked me, and what I thought is a way that as a Parliament we could move forward, and also the implications of our behaviour here and how that's translated outside. So, Madam Speaker, as I close, I want to say that we have to find a new level. We have to rise, I believe, to a new level. And we have to be willing to be bold enough to acknowledge when we have erred. We have to be bold enough not to hide behind words as we make the statement, because there are many others looking at us and expecting us to set an example. Thank you very much.
Members, I have listened to both statements, and I want to say, as I said, and I have said before, and to borrow your own words, there needs to be a reset in this Parliament, and there is as of this evening. And when I say reset, I mean specifically the behaviour of all members of Parliament. This Parliament is the highest court of the land. And this Parliament has examples of members who have sat in this House for several years, who have had disagreements, who have had differences of views and disagreement with their counterparts. And never before have I ever seen something that has brought this Parliament into the level of disrepute that took place last week. I want the reset to be made, that it should never happen again. And indeed, member, one of the things about good parliamentary behaviour is in a matter of this nature that is so important. You have addressed me, the member on this side, and I listened carefully. A document was given to me to sign, and I pushed it away. I don't expect, if I'm responding now, that you will be speaking with another member at the same time. That I also find is not parliamentary and not gracious. And to use your own words, we must have a reset. We must abide by the standing orders. We must learn to be respectful of each other. And this Speaker does not, and I certainly would not like to preside over a Parliament that is like a Sunday school, where you cannot have exchanges. As one member said, we are parliamentarians. We are like on a stage. And with the cut and thrust of democratic politics, there are going to be exchanges. But I ask you to recognize, and I urge every member to read the standing orders, because the standing order says clearly from Standing Order 40 that when a member is speaking, other members should be heard in silence. When you deliver your speeches, you should do so in English language. When it is that the Speaker, and this is not referring to Marissa Dalrymple Philibert, I am referring to the office of the Speaker of this House. Once you get up, and you address the Speaker, it is all well and good to say anger and provocation. And it is indeed a defense if you are charged for something that you were provoked. But it certainly does not diminish the offense. And not, as I said for Marissa Dalrymple's Philibert, but for the Parliament and the decorum, I ask that we observe the rules of Parliament. I accept, as the member on this side of the fence said, that race politics is not something that he entertains. And therefore, having been there some years ago, I ask that as a Parliament of 2023, we do not return to that. And I want to thank both members, and I want to use the very words of the member who spoke last. We do need a reset. And members, just be reminded that every member of this House has the right to challenge any ruling of any Speaker. You do have the right. But if you read your standing orders, it will tell you the parliamentary way to do so. No Speaker can just automatically make a ruling that you do not have an avenue to challenge. And I urge you to do so in a parliamentary fashion, because that is your right, and you ought to be heard. So I'm encouraging every member of the Parliament that if the Speaker makes a ruling and you do not use the parliamentary procedures open to us, and do what is necessary so that we may have a debate on the point that is being challenged. That is the correct way. That is the way. And therefore, as a reset, and we have students in the gallery this evening, and it's good for them to understand that disagreements, misunderstandings can take place, but the proper way to deal with these situations is for us to explain properly. So parliamentary behavior, decorum, please call your members by the constituency or refer to the honourable member, because we are all honourable.
So, Angela Bromberg finally got her say. And Nigel. I went and did research myself. I went to look up the meaning of the word massa. And usually it was modern Jamaican lexicon. But one I think I found when I Googled it was that massa is offensive and is also dated. So massa, formerly used in representation of the speech of slaves in the US. So that's another explanation that you didn't put in your speech or your prepared sermon. You spoke of Christians using the word God. A lot of Jamaican black people, their image, their concept of God, he's a white being. So, yes, they're referring to him as Massa. I think you missed a great chance here to just, you dug the grave digger, you did the whole digger and put yourself down and bury yourself. That's all I have to say is, I'm sorry. And that would have been it. Now, the Speaker, who is also at fault and to be blamed, spoke of Angela Bromberg spoke of a reset of Parliament, and she agreed. I am going to be watching the Speaker to see how she conducts the sitting, because she's begging the members to be in a certain way. She needs to dictate that this certain behavior, this is what is expected, and I will not tolerate anything otherwise. Not beg them. The people are members of your party, the government side. You don't carry the same weight as they do. I mean, we can't be doing this kind of thing, Mark. It's just basic, simple thing. You mash your man can, just say sorry. Nobody with no long speech and one bag of reference to who did say. Because if somebody did say something in the past that is wrong, or 10,000 people say something in the past that is wrong, that does not make it right in the future or in the current time. We need to stop the Parliament need. The Speaker said, Honourable, you can't force me to refer to as Honourable if I don't see you as Honourable. You didn't do the Honourable thing, Nigel. We can't expect, look at how our children are behaving in schools. We can't expect better from them if we don't have the common decency to say, look, I offended you and I'm sorry. It's simple as that. Now, I know it's a long video, watching the clips, so I won't add much more of my own personal thoughts to it, but we can have a discussion in the comment section. But thank you for watching, and as usual, until we meet again, until something stirs my thought, one love, one art, holy for manners and holy for respect. I thank you.
Thanks for watching.